It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. It's time now for Canonball. We take albums that everyone agrees are classics, or albums that everyone should agree are classics, and find out what makes them so great. This week, we're going to talk about Donny Hathaway Live. It was recorded in Hollywood and New York in 1972. It's almost entirely covers, with Hathaway singing and playing piano. Donny Hathaway Live is one of Emily Lordi's all-time favorite records. Emily is a professor at the University of Massachusetts, where she lectures on Black literature and music. She loved this album so much, she wrote an entire book about it, the 33 1/3 series. And if you ask her, she is convinced Donny Hathaway does not get the respect he deserves.
Donny Hathaway was a phenomenally gifted singer, composer, arranger, and band leader who sort of quietly revolutionized the technical and expressive possibilities of soul music. And yet, despite his contributions, he's often excluded from histories of American popular music. This is in part because Hathaway's earnest sincerity and love of real musical beauty don't necessarily fit our archetypes of the stereotypical macho soul man. Let's take a listen to What's Going On. It's the first track on his live album.
Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we gotta find a way to bring some love in here today.
It's an interesting move for Hathaway to begin his set with this song, which was at that time a massive hit for Marvin Gaye, who was the far more famous artist. So Donny Hathaway is opening a set on a coast, the West Coast, where he's never played, in front of a number of people who have never seen him play before, with a song that has been made famous by somebody who's far better known. There are a couple of different ways to interpret that decision. One would be that it's a kind of modest overture, this idea that even if people don't know Donny Hathaway, they'll probably know this song, so it's a kind of way in. But another way to look at it, and the way that I would tend to interpret it, is that it's like the ultimate gangster move. Donny Hathaway is saying he can take any song and remake it and just kill it and move on.
What's going on? Hey, yeah. What's going on? I wanna know what's going on.
The first song that I heard from this record was his cover of John Lennon's Jealous Guy.
I was dreaming of the past, and my heart was beating fast. I began to lose control.
He recorded Jealous Guy live just 6 weeks after Lennon had released this song on his album Imagine. And what Hathaway does, as he would do for so many recordings, is to remake this song in his own image. John Lennon's version of the song is a kind of demure apology that is issued from a man whose jealousy has gotten the better of him. When Hathaway sings the song, however, he kind of steadily builds the intensity of the lyric, as if telling the story about this night he got jealous just makes him mad all over again.
I was feeling insecure. You might not want me anymore. I was shivering inside.
Hathaway's version, which starts as an apology, ends up with a demand as he ends up singing towards the end in this ad-lib, "I don't want nobody looking at you." So what's so interesting about that to me is that I think that it kind of exposes the central irony of Lennon's version. Because what Hathaway does is to show how insufficient, if not actually hypocritical, it is to apologize for being jealous, while also complacently admitting that you're just a jealous guy. In Hathaway's version, that admission comes to seem like more of an excuse than an apology. It comes to seem like it's less the answer to this problem than the problem itself. This is You've Got a Friend, a song originally written and recorded by Carole King. This, to me, is the album's most iconic moment because the album as a whole documents not only Donny Hathaway's incredible abilities as a pianist, composer, arranger, band leader, and of course, an incredible vocalist, but it also documents the love that you can really hear so clearly between Donny Hathaway and his audience. So you can hear that the crowd erupts as he plays the first chords of the song. Many people in the audience would have recognized it from his duet with Roberta Flack. But they also then took the opportunity to play the role of Roberta Flack as Donny Hathaway is singing the song. You know, they let him sing the first verse alone, but as soon as he gets to the chorus, they join in at full voice.
You just
The last track on Donny Hathaway Live is Voices Inside, the subtitle of which is Everything is Everything.
is everything, y'all.
And it's a 13.5-minute instrumental jam.
Feel like clapping your hands, pat your feet, shout.
Even though the song is called Voices Inside, the vocals are not the most important part of the song. Really, this is an instrumental song, and it's especially an opportunity for Donny Hathaway to turn the spotlight on the different members of his band, of whom he was extremely proud. So what we hear is Donny Hathaway breaking this version of the song down into 4 movements, as he says. That's interesting because it recalls the fact that he studied music education, among other things, as an undergraduate at Howard University. And he retained that kind of teacherly role throughout his life. So here he's explaining how the song works, breaking it down into these 4 movements. Donny Hathaway sequentially introduces the different members of his band who are going to play these solos. Not only does he introduce Mike Howard, for instance, on guitar, but he tells us that he's from Washington, D.C. Not only does he introduce Willie Weeks, who's going to play what will become a legendary bass solo, but he tells us that Willie Weeks is from Salemburg, North Carolina, and he calls him the baddest bass player in the country.
Salemburg, North Carolina. On bass. The baddest bass player in the country. Willie Weeks, y'all.
I think this is important is because it really puts into action what Martin Luther King called the concept of a beloved Black community. Donny Hathaway is very intent on distributing the voices of the song amongst the different players in his group. It's also important at a moment when Black expressive labor is not necessarily being acknowledged. Donny Hathaway is very careful to work against that idea of obscuring or even stealing Black music and not crediting its originators by making a point of naming and identifying and even giving us the place of origin of all of the people who are contributing. It's an album that bears his name only, but he wants to make it clear in the way that he's performing the song that it is truly a collective, communal enterprise.
Everything is everything, yeah.
Dr. Emily Lordi on the album she would add to the pop culture canon, 1972's Donny Hathaway Live.